I don't think we've showed much about our team yet. We've played very standard drafts. We've been playing a lot against most teams for a long time now. I think that's the ace in our sleeve that can put us just over the edge. I think our expectations are definitely in top 4, even winning the whole thing.
그때는 진짜 너무 그냥 프나틱을 이겼다는 것 자체만으로도 너무 좋은데 준비한 카드를 안 보여주고 이겼다는 게 진짜 너무 행복했어요.
Obviously, the first goal in every tournament is always to get out of groups, but you know, we're here to win the whole thing. I would definitely say we got an ace up our sleeves.
저희 앞길을 막는 모든 팀을 다 박살낼 생각입니다.
Over the last 6 months, all of these teams have been vying and competing to call themselves a world champion here for Heroes of the Storm. We have 8 teams remaining, and we're about to find out which of those over the next 3 days is going to take that title. A warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as we are live from Jönköping, Sweden, here in DreamHack Summer, and we begin what is sure to be an awesome playoffs for the mid-season Brawl. And one welcome, my name is Kyle Aris. I will be your host throughout the next 3 days. And to my left, to start things off, we have Kaldor, we have Dreadnought, we have Jayhow. Boys, we had 5 days worth of groups, and overall, they were absolutely fantastic.
It was definitely the best international tournament that we had so far. From day one, we had a lot of upsets, we had fantastic matches, and now we're heading into the last 3 days, and I couldn't be more hyped for this.
I think that's the coolest thing, is not only because of the upsets that we got to experience through the group stages, now it's like, who's going to win this thing? It's the least predictable, by far, the most competitive international tournament we've had for a long while in Heroes of the Storm.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Competitive-wise, I mean, the round-robin bracket that we had, the way that this played out, I don't think we could have asked for more at this point. Everything is exactly what we've been waiting for, and the new HGC format has done that.
It definitely has. That's one thing that it has proved. We've seen Europe rise to the occasion once again here. We've even seen China come in and show some ridiculous things throughout the first 5 days. Who would have thought coming in that E-Star would have looked as they do?
I mean, that has to be, at least for me, the biggest surprise of all of the group stage. E-Star coming in and not only having a good performance, an absolutely dominant one.
Yes.
It's amazing how many tournaments in a row we've heard everybody's worried about E-Star, everybody's worried about E-Star, and then they haven't quite lived up to the hype. But now they were like, nobody was talking about him as much, and now they're exceeding all expectations, looking at like one of the favorites.
It's not only that they had great results, it's the way they achieved the results, which is the crazy thing. I mean, they are all over the place. You can't stop these guys. Day one, we're talking about Jingzi and how he plays this Greymane. All of a sudden, teams are thinking, well, you know what? We ban out the Greymane, we're good. Well, you're not. He goes in with the Vala, the double support. You ban out the 2 of them, he comes in with a Genji. You can't stop these kids.
And of course, we have plenty of other things to talk about from the group stage. But before we do that, it was a fantastic 5 days that we had over in Stockholm, Sweden, as we were witnessing some great games from all of these 12 teams. Let's get you up to speed, just in case you missed it.
The entire time, keeping himself up. Robodobo with that burrow onto San Xiao. The explosion, and that is 5-4. Nomia just turns it up, and it looks like they are going to look to end this game.
We're going to have a full 5-on-5 fight here as all members move into the middle. Sanctification popped out, but multiple members are low on health. Genji getting resets left and right here. Quacknick's burning through.
We have what it takes for sure. We're here to win the whole damn thing.
To engage here. Here comes the ley line on the other hand. They're trying to collapse onto it, but immediately Tyrion with the sanctification. Great move on the side of Fury. Medivh is down already. 5 versus 4. Temperstorm is going.
Honestly, I'm trying to do my best before our match versus Fnatic to just put myself in the best mental state. I'm confident that we can beat Fnatic.
The VP coming out. They're setting up. Here's the A-Block.
A-Block goes in, and immediately the triple quad stun and the double kill as Genji and Tyrael both fall. Breeze moves in, stuns on Numaruk and takes him down. It's a triple.
Abathur did lose out, or has ultimate evolution soon here. Can he actually do that? Oh, Zaze goes in and actually gets a kill here.
Day has no mana here, Trixler. Innover is staying on top of reset, but the Abathur hat on top of that is doing work.
You can't stop.
Honestly, to me, I think MVP Black, they got lucky, and that's why they got the 2 wins. Normally, I think on any circumstances, they should lose to us 2-0 easily.
On the right target here, he does have.
Oh, he goes in
with it. But there's the Twilight 3.
There's
They
a
turn it
bloodbath.
over to Simba. Tyrael is dead. He explodes onto Zaze. Genji's going deep and he dies. It's a full team wipe by Deadly Kittens. They're gonna. What are they?
솔직히 좀 무섭긴 해요. 그래도 좀 폼이 올라온 것 같으니까 그래도 반반은 하지 않을까 생각해요.
We've got the self-destruct trying to zone away L5. There's one that maybe gets caught with the Detainment Strike, but Noblesse just barely gets away.
E-Star has that split pushing though the entire time. There comes out the bunny hop, getting the slow on the Nacho Jin. Adaptation's too late. SCSC.
Get the Tychus for their shrines just a little bit. Man,
John.
they are ready for action.
I told
25
you.
seconds in and
Aggro.
2 kills.
Here we go. Starting at level 1, that is a triple kill.
How did they just do this?
After discussing with the team, I ended up changing the draft plan, and it was not the right move.
Noblesse, he survived. Sanctification is going to be dropped 7-sided as well, but the Ancestral connects. Tempo is on full retreat, but the Holy Ground ends up getting the split.
Oh, Illidan is down and so is Rhaegar. It's a double kill against Tempo Storm. They drop Greymane, but it's not enough. Genji's also falling. They get the hook against Chromie. It has to be the kill. Timeout used. Judgment. They go in with everything they have, but Chromie is down.
Chromie is down.
Use that mana trying to jump into the backline. Doesn't get the chance just yet. Dragonblade is popped. Snitch is moving in. Noblesse still in trouble. Gets stunned once again. Snitch looking for an opportunity. He sees it. He gets it. He takes Tyrael down.
And now all of a sudden, Ice Block is there, but Snitch continuing to do work as he's starting to follow
By getting there, by 3-0ing L5, I love it. I'm really happy.
More damage. Cattle is found. They try to get on him. Guardian King's keeping him alive. A move with so much CC. Tom getting chased out by Scroll, but it's going to be Valor who blows up first. Master Black King gets some value. Here comes the Ariel trying to drop the Aegis.
I'll see you at Yen Shopping.
Explosive games and exhilarating action from the group stage as we culminated things and we got everything down to 8 teams remaining. We can take a look at the groups to see how things played out in those first 5 days here as Group A and Group B. Well, as Grubby said in one of those segments, it was a bloodbath. Go over to Group A, we did have MVP Black, Fnatic, Roll20 and Nomia advancing on in that order of placement. And Group B, E-Star, Team Dignitas, L5 and Tempo Storm made their way out. It all looks as if it's cleanly broken down there, but it was anything but. We saw Korea even having a hard time here in this tournament, Kaldor.
Yeah, and the one thing that personally excites me coming from the group stage now into the final phase of the tournament is that in the group stage, your main goal is to get out, and you are, of course, aiming for the winner bracket. And a lot of the top teams have said, hey, we have more strategies up our sleeves. We just were trying to hide some of our drafts. But now this is really the time when you have to show everything. So it's going to get even better from here on out, and that is just absolutely amazing to think about.
It was I would argue, the best format we've ever had for Heroes of the Storm so far. Best of 2 format. You play 2 games against one another. You win 1 and then go 1-1. You get 1 point. You win both 2-0 and you get 3 points overall. But we got to see so much diversity in the draft, going up against each other's teams. It was quite interesting.
One thing I really like with the format too that we haven't really touched up on too much is that it essentially forced every team to have an even amount of data distributed. And not only that, we got it in first and second pick slots. So now every team has a pretty solid understanding, except for the pocket strategies you talked about, of what everybody's aiming for. When they're in the second pick, they prioritize these heroes. When they're in the first slot, they look for these 3. So it will make these drafts that much more important and impactful here now that we're past the groups.
When you talk about the draft in particular, I think the biggest thing about this is how much the Koreans have acknowledged that their meta is a little bit behind that of Europe in particular. And so we've seen picks. We saw Tist. He's now playing a Nubarak competitively in the Korean scene. He did not play it. That was a Kyocha. So things like that. The impact of the meta at this tournament is just exploded. We've seen Diva play, Genji, of course, high priority, but the main heroes, I think, has been one of the biggest things for me.
It's probably one of the most famous, like the most fantastic things for me personally coming into an international tournament, that every international tournament we had so far just evolves its own meta after a while, and that is just so super insanely good to watch. It's just intense.
All right, well, it's time to look at the brackets to see how things are going to be playing out. It is double elimination. If you placed first and second in your group, you go into the upper bracket. If you placed third and fourth, you go into the lower bracket. Effectively, those in the upper have 2 lives here in this all best of 5 format, apart from the grand final, which will be a best of 7 with a 1-map lead for the victor. So you could see how the brackets broke down there. We're going to have some awesome matches to come. We can actually take a look at the schedule and break that down even further now, because it's so what we have coming, even just for day 1, is nothing but special. Later on, we will have games such as Roll20 going up against Tempo Storm. North America is going to knock out North America. We will have eStar Gaming, the amazing position that they put themselves from the groups, going up against Fnatic. MVP Black versus Team Dignitas, that good old rivalry. But first, we will start things off with L5 going up against Nomia. Normally, this is where I would say L5 versus Nomia. Let's go into that. But overall, those matches are fantastic.
The matches are absolutely insane. And me personally, I'm looking forward towards eStar versus Fnatic. That's one of the games. eStar just this entire tournament has not only played well, but they played an incredibly attractive style. Watching their games was always a blast. Now they go up against Fnatic, one of the few teams that has beaten Greens before we headed into this tournament, and it's going to be a bloodbath.
All right, let's talk about our first game of the day. L5 from Korea will be going up against Nomia, representing ANZ. And overall, they are the only team from one of the smaller regions that has been able to advance through into this top 8. So they have gone from strength to strength in every single tournament they've ever been at, and here has been where they've been able to actually breach that proper position and get themselves a relatively top finish so far.
And when looking at the history of small regions, when they manage to break past the threshold, get past the group stage, this seems to be the beginning of the end, always, right? It has never gone beyond this point. So if somehow Nomia here against the weakest version of L5 we have ever seen can put up a phenomenal fight, they may make history.
Well, before we do get into that, of course, we're going to be taking a deeper dive into these teams in just a few moments. But first, we welcome, of course, a previous world champion to the stage. It is, of course, L5.
일단 좋은 팀워크를 위해서는 팀원들끼리 경기 중에 대화가 끊이지 않는 게 많이 중요한 것 같아요. 대화가 끊이면 이게 경기가 진행이 안 되기 때문에 열심히 대화로 경기를 풀어가는 게 중요한 것 같아요.
좀 성적에 연연 안 하고 저희끼리 좀 즐기면서 하는 게 장점인 것 같아요. 좀 다른 팀보다 연습량이 최근 들어는 좀 요새 소홀한 것 같아요. 그래서 그게
26 gems onto the ground. With this Jay Shrite move up, you can see he wants them, but L5, they're like, I dare you, buddy.
지금부터는 여기 스웨덴에 와서는 많이 할 거지만 만약에 지게 된다면 그 전에 좀 소홀했던 게 문제가 되지 않을까 생각해요. 뉴신트를 나누면 이기면 사실 프로게이머라면 그냥 상대보다 우리가 더 게임 잘하는 거 보여주는 게 더 재밌어요. 사람들한테 보여주는 게.
One of the strongest teams in Heroes of the Storm history here in L5. But, gentlemen, it hasn't been without its bumps here in this tournament.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when they're playing against Dig, they had a couple of problems here. And that is very uncharacteristic for a Korean team. Usually when you're looking at the group stage, they are having a great start there. They hide a lot of strategies, but you can tell that everyone else is trying to catch up to them. This time, it was the exact opposite.
For me, it goes back to before the Eastern Clash. How do you nitpick at a team that went undefeated in their region during league play, right? There were minor slip-ups that we started to see. It was kind of like a slow fall for this team. They lost at Eastern Clash, but they still continue to win in their league. And there's something about this team that just doesn't seem the same. And again, there's a certain level of greatness you put on yourself when you win BlizzCon. So you have expectations. Any noticeable dip will be there in front of everyone's eyes, and I think we're seeing it right now.
I do think we definitely are experiencing that dip here of the L5. But the question that we're going to be answering with this series is it so much so that they can drop to a small region? And I feel like the answer to that is just flat no. This is going to be a very difficult series. No matter how much we talk about the weakness in the step back that it feels like L5 took, it is still nowhere near far enough back for it to match with Nomia.
I mean, let's talk about the fact that L5 here, again, our previous world champions, is in the lower bracket. They were put here by Dignitas after losing out a tiebreaker situation. So for the L5 to come into the playoffs with only 1 life, that's a big deal, Caldo.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's one of the things that they are not going to be happy with at all. Dignitas, on the other hand, they were ecstatic. First of all, the initial win that they had, but then also in the tiebreaker, because going into the tiebreaker, Dignitas did not feel too confident. They said, okay, we can do this. There was a lot of doubt on their part too, and then they had a fantastic showing, and L5 now must feel a little bit off. This is definitely in the back of their head at this point.
Yeah, from the group stage to the brackets, they're definitely going to have to step it up here if they want to survive throughout this tournament. For now, though, of course, we can introduce our second team coming into this series. It's the wild card of the playoffs. From ANZ, it's Nomia.
The key to great teamwork definitely comes down to, I guess there's 2 different team elements you can go from. Is the one of it's business, it's completely for work, where you don't have to get along necessarily, but if you just work together to get the job done, just like any other job, then yeah, that works. But I also feel like team bonding is the strongest part. Just getting along with everyone on your team. It's got to be a real close friendship. If the 4 other people on the team with you is like really important if you want to succeed and have a good environment.
And Tomb, as the fight goes on here up to the top, and already we have the local swarm being used. Ice block on Malfurion. They're trying to escape here, but Nomia with the first kill in the fight.
Our team's major strengths are definitely team fighting and just taking advantage of people being out of position and then pushing a lead when we get picks. I feel like our weaknesses compared to the other international teams would be a small map pool and hero pools. While they have a much larger range of heroes to play from, we don't really have as big of a hero pool. If we were to win the MSB, it would be just a lot of luck and someone's out there looking after us, because it's very unlikely.
Of all the teams coming into the playoffs, I feel the most empathy towards this team. They've shown us so much character and so much kind of dedication to their craft in tough circumstances that they've had to go through, obviously being on another planet in Australia. So it's difficult for them to actually approach the game and be able to do as well as other regions.
But one thing when, looking at Nomia, especially after that interview and hearing the fact that they are self-aware of their hero pools is the biggest redeeming quality or chance I feel like they have against L5 here, because they have some of the most straightforward drafting strategies. It's very apparent what they're going to be aiming for, and L5 has only learned the meta better as time has moved on. So it is crucial that Nomia just has a draft master plan here for this series if they're going to be successful.
They definitely are very straightforward. We saw a lot of Tassadar from them, but they're also one of the first teams to bust out that diva. That was the thing, is it's just like some people aren't necessarily as familiar with it. And we heard from L5, they hadn't been practicing as much. So is this something that can throw them off? I mean, those are big questions that are about to be answered.
For me, that was one of the coolest things, seeing them come into the tournament, that they did not simply try to emulate the other regions, but they had a few ideas on their own that they just threw out there. And when we were talking on the analyst panel and saw the Diva and Cursed Hollow, everyone was like, not quite sure if that's the map for the hero. And then all of a sudden you have that game-winning moment at the end, perfect explosion, and that just decides the series right away in their favor. So that was pretty cool that they have the confidence to show this.
One thing's for sure, though, coming into this series, and it's for both teams, but I think especially Nomia, you've got 1 life left. You're going into a very, very tense situation where you have to show everything. You have to give it your all here. Otherwise, in a lower bracket, you're out. So does Nomia have the potential to kind of bust something crazy out here, or do they just go back to those roots and try for something like the Diva, etc.?
I think it all comes down to their mentality. If their goal here is to place as high as they possibly can, then yes, that is the smartest thing that I think they could do in this series, is catch L5 off guard. Making them adapt midway through a series could really already set a mentally weak team to just fall and crumble under the pressure here, especially with that 1 life that we've been talking about so much.
they have one thing in their favor. Nobody expects them to actually win.
Yeah.
And that is a
Yeah.
big advantage. There's no pressure on them. It's a bit reminiscent of what we had when Fnatic was going up against MVP Black at BlizzCon.
Yeah.
Because Fnatic went into that series saying, this is it.
Yep.
This is where we lose. And all of a sudden they gained momentum
Yeah.
and they said, you know what, we can actually win this. And sometimes it's just the best thing that you can, or the best situation you can possibly be in when you have no pressure. And they said from the start, we're taking this as a learning experience, but if they see a chance, they're going to jump on it.
And we've seen the potential for Korea to be upset by slightly unfamiliar drafts from them. As we've seen, you know, Roll20 defeat MVP Black 22 kills 2-0. So it's definitely possible to catch our Korean counterparts off guard. Here are the map bans as well as our first map to come. So we're going to start things on Infernal Shrines here, guys, with Brax's Holdout and Cursed Hollow being banned out respectively. So I'm not surprised that we're going to Infernal Shrines to start things off. I think it's probably a good map for both of these teams to start feeling each other out in this full best of 5, don't you think?
I think I think it definitely is. It gives you an opportunity to not only play the macro game, but it gives you a chance to team fight. And I think that's what stands out to me most is Nomia banned Cursed Hollow, which is one of the more macro-focused battlegrounds that we have. And the fact that they recognize, they said it in the interview that we had before. They think that their team strength is team fighting.
And think about how crazy that statement is with them now banning Cursed Hollow. You're going up against a Korean team and you're saying right off the bat, if we win this, it's in the team fight.
That's a little unheard of.
There's a lot of confidence.
Yeah, but I mean, it shows because we're yet to see Nomia pay attention to Cursed Hollow, at least in the ban department here. Yeah, that was the biggest thing that we see already so far in the series, that Nomia, they're here to play. They've come in with a strategy. They're going to mix things up in order to catch L5 off guard. It's not enough, though. Maps, there is no way there is a big enough of a weakness just purely on the map here. All these teams are very, very comfortable on the map.
We talk about this, though, but realistically, when we look at this from a truly historical standpoint, there is no way L5 should be losing this series. They should be coming in strong here. They are a previous world champion, and to them, they should not be losing out. But now, let's get into it. Our first draft here of the mid-season Brawl playoffs. L5 goes up against Nomia, and we are on Infernal Shrines.
You know, you're saying they should not lose here, and you're absolutely right with this. The one thing that can happen, though, is if Nomia, let's say they get a lucky punch in on the first map.
Yeah.
If they get the Koreans to at some point think, can we actually lose this? Then they find themselves in a really good spot. It's just you have to sow that doubt in the head of your opponent.
Already, Nomia just looking to get rid of the Genji. He has been a very popular hero here at the mid-season Brawl. Whether or not he's worth the ban, though, I think is still kind of up for debate. When looking at the statistics, and when we look at all the teams in the tournament and only the top 8, he has very varied results, actually. So it's one that I think we'll still continue to see because he synergizes so well with a lot of heroes here. But mainly for L5, their concern has to be globals, specifically Abathur.
Yes. One of my concerns coming in is we saw it in the group stage, how much power Uther had behind him. Obviously, there are big, strong picks like an Uberak and stuff like that, but Uther seems to just disable an entire array of strategies based around stuns, so everything.
It was actually really interesting because when we started with the tournament, Uther started out as a ban, also a soft ban against Genji because you wanted to try and avoid the combo. But then all of a sudden we had way more double support combs with the Vala, Abathur, and Oriel coming in. So Uther was just rising constantly in priority for the teams as a ban. And in this case, we have a ban on Greymane, which, to be quite honest, is a bit of a shock to me because that is not really justified by what we've seen so far.
What is L5 doing?
I have so much to say already. Okay, so I agree with you that the Greymane, actually, I can kind of see why he's banned out here, just because the map and Shrines, he works so well with the objective itself. But the fact that Uther has not been touched so far through this draft is pretty insane. The impact that he has managed to have happen, giving over statistically right now in a Nubarak and an Uther is essentially you lose the video game.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, think about Uther, like first pick a Nubarak just says, here, have Uther and get this armor at level 7 for every single stun I throw out. And the fact that L5 is just like, nope, we're good. We're just going to go Vala Aura, which is a extremely powerful combo. But you got to wonder, this is what instantly comes to mind, is that Nomia, they love Tassadar. Will they go into Tassadar, or will they have to ban it and then potentially give up the Uther Vala that E-Star dominated with?
I think this is the most obvious thing at this point. You have to either pick or ban the Uther. They pick him, obviously. And now you have to think about the Tassadar ban. Because giving the hyper carry Vala to your opponent, that is a big problem. And Nomia immediately with Illidan, who has seen a big rise in this tournament as well. The dive comms just play into his strength. So this is Nomia once again saying, we want to team fight.
Another reason why I believe we see a rise of the Illidan in this tournament is not only synergistic heroes have become only better, things like the Uther, right? I mean, it's obvious there, but it's actually that all the heroes that are so offensive are essentially a direct counter to Falstad. They are so easy to get a pick onto him. So now suddenly everybody's like, we've lost a global in this meta. We don't have a free Falstad to be able to pick up, and Illidan has kind of taken that place because of those synergistic heroes and the counters to the Falstad.
This right here worries me a little bit, is that they're playing towards their draft. They're showing confidence, Nomia is, in their draft, saying that we don't want to go up against Illidan counters. Arthas is one of the best, but they give up so much, I think, to the side of L5. Potentially Tassadar, Dahaga, heroes that L5 can pair with this and then play extremely well. But the fact that Nomia is so confident in this draft, that worries me that they might be giving up too much to play to their own strengths.
But it's one of the things where you see them make a clear decision, where they know what the threat is, that now L5 could pick up a second support, could pick up a Tassadar, and they're just saying, you know what, we're completely fine with you playing a double support Vala. Our Illidan is going to rip you apart. We can play that. But the one thing we're worried about is an Arthas taking the position on the shrine, catering even more towards the objective, and at the same time, mostly negating one of our core strengths in the draft. So I actually think it's a lot of confidence.
I thought we were over the Ragnaros. I thought there was no way he showed up past the group stage.
They are one of the few teams that play him, and this is actually the map where they played him before.
Guys.
Multiple times.
Yes.
And they lost the E-Star with the Ragnaros before. Now the Varian obviously is going to get a good taunt onto Illidan. The Varian Ragnaros, this whole draft from L5, I think, is throwing us all for a bit of a loop right now.
The problem that I have with this is actually, if the Uther was not on the side of Nomia, I would say, okay, you go in, you hit the taunt, you try to drop the Raxel for a smash in. If you go for Rain, you can use that as well. You lock the key target down on your opponent, destroy the Illidan, and you're good. But with this particular setup, the only thing that has to happen is you drop the Divine Shield and Illidan says, oh, you just used all your cooldowns on me? Thank you very much.
This takes away the global from L5, as we're going to see Tyrael and Gul'dan. So Shrine control galore. The Uther with the Gul'dan sometimes is a little bit questionable because you're going to have to prioritize a lot of the heals on the front line, which is fine. But now we have this all-in divide and conquer composition for Nomia post-10.
What saves this draft right now, Dredd?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I feel like it's going to be a potential Li Ming just to get that full blow-up comp, because they have their front line.
I don't think you can, not on Shrines.
It'll be Zarya, I think, just to be able to deal with all the melees, get the cross-supporting out, and be able to put out the DPS. But is that saving the draft? I don't think so.
Yeah.
If no level of feel the heat value, I think, can get the rebuttal here. I'm going to be honest, though, guys. I am absurdly in favor of Nomia's draft, but I'm still not totally sold. It's enough to meet that gap.
So far, is this one of the most lopsided drafts we've seen in the whole of mid-season?
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you erase the name of these teams, yes. It's like I'd be voting like 90 out of 100 games, 90% of the time, Nomia wins.
That's exactly the problem. You have a skill gap between the two teams, and the big question is, Nomia won the draft.
Oh, that was the.
But the question is really, is that enough to really bridge the gap there?
Okay, so why that Tassadar is so awkward, is so awkward in that position, is you think about the Holy Trinity and you're like so impactful, but then you think about killing Illidan, and it never happens with a Tassadar. You're like, we have to kill it. We need the damage. So then you're immediately like, Archon makes a lot of sense, but that is actually so little damage because it's always through auto attacks. I would even rather them take Force Wall and pray between the taunt, between the Force Wall, Illidan overextends, and rely on Nomia.
Strike.
Yes.
But you're running against an Uther Tyrael. That's double invulnerability. You can potentially, unless we see a Hunt Judgment, which is not out of the question at this point.
The thing is, they didn't go in on the strategy. They did not go in on either the double support or the blow-up comp with the variant. So it's a mix of two worlds where it could work against Nomia, but at the same time, just from a draft, Nomia won this by a landslide.
I mean, so yes, there is a Holy Trinity. There's Varian as well. For the uninitiated here that may be watching at the moment, Ragnaros used to be very strong as well, but he has had nerf after nerf after nerf into a very odd state. And L5 continues to be the only team that is really incorporating him, but
it's not looked good either.
No, it's not looking good. I need to go for predictions, guys, before we get into this first game. Kaldor?
Way better draft for Nomia, but I think L5 is too strong. I think they can't bridge the gap with the draft alone.
Yeah, so L5. All right.
I never thought I'd say this, but it was that bad.
No way.
I'm going Nomia.
Going
seriously, I told myself there's no world I get up here today and I say this until that Tassadar pick.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know if that is enough. I'm willing to take the risk. I know it's a big one and the gap is there, but that draft.
J-How?
I way too much for me to want to pull away from L5. I've got to go L5 here.
Yeah, I understandable. Seriously.
All right. It is understandable, definitely, as they are a previous world champion going up against one of the smaller regions. Let's take a look with how our chat is going to be picking as well. As what? did chat just become drafting gods as well?
Yeah.
Is that what happened? All right. So it looks like chat is with Nomi here at the moment. Obviously understandable in terms of rooting for the underdog coming into this first game and first series of the day. For now, we're heading over to the commentary team for the first game of the mid-season Brawl playoffs.
Thank you very much, Caloris. Yes, we are. It is going to be the first game of the mid-season Brawl playoffs. I am Tetra. This, of course, is Grubby. And we are going to be heading into our first game on Infernal Shrines. Oh, yes.
So foreboding and so much action coming up here, Tetra, as we launch into the first game here at DreamHack of the top 8 at the mid-season Brawl. It's going to be L5 on the left in the blue, SCSC on Vala, Swoy on Ariel, Jongha on Ragnaros, Noblesse on Varian, and Nachochin on Tassadar.
Whereas on the right-hand side from ANZ, it is going to be Nomia. And playing for them, Robodoba on Anubarak, Vanilla on Uther, Arcana on Illidan, Fat94 on Tyrael, and John is playing Gul'dan.
Now, I gotta agree with the analyst here, Tetra. This is about as lopsided of a draft I've ever seen. From the way it started from L5, it looks like they said, we are just going to be beating Nomia with our mechanics. Every time a team thinks that they have incredible micro and team fighting, they take Vala Ariel, which is in stark contrast to the vast Uther-focused drafts we have seen. And Ragnaros, quite an artifact by now.
Yeah, Nomia has so much control in their draft, going for that W talent on Uther, getting that extra spread armor amongst the team, whereas Varian has gone for the Lion's Fang here. Oh, bit of an engaged, bit of damage onto Varian, but even without Shield Wall, he's able to tank through all this by blocking the attacks from Illidan. But he's gone for the Lion's Fang, and this has, in the past, led into Colossus Smash builds because it gives the most burst follow-up, but he's the solo tank in the team, so this is just for extra wave clear maybe, and for a little bit of extra burst on their engages.
Yeah, I think in this particular situation, you're up against an evasion Illidan and speccing into auto attacks with the Heroic Strike Refreshment at level 1. It's not going to be quite as impactful. Instead, you get a little bit extra spell damage, a little bit extra slow, and you be that tank for your team. I do expect we'll be seeing Taunt, but it's just a little bit more effective against Illidan. Having said that, Varian is far and away not the most ideal warrior to go up against Illidan to provide that lockdown. His lockdown is really not that good compared to Murden and Anubarak on an Illidan.
In terms of surviving, he's great. His parry is consistent blocking even without Shield Wall, so he's good in the early game all the way through to the late game. But, like you said, in terms of actually locking down Illidan and killing him, he's not the most ideal choice, but potentially the most ideal choice was banned out by Nomia. The Arthas getting removed here.
So, we are looking at the rotation. Neither side really getting an edge yet. Quest stacks being buffed up for both teams here on Gul'dan and on Varian's Lion's Maw as well. We see the initial attempt here by L5 to start taking the first skeletons, and Ragnaros and Tyrael are still staying in the top lane, so a medium commitment from both teams. Now we have Nomia taking it over.
Bit of poke from both teams. Illidan trying to get onto Varian, but he's tanking through. Noblesse not letting that happen.
John taking a lot of damage here from SCSC. We can see Valas, SCSC honing in on John's Gul'dan as much as he can. Anytime Gul'dan is in range, and he's in range rather a lot. But now the turnaround, everyone has showed up. Nomia bringing 5, as is L5.
Illidan jumping over Varian, but there's a lot of damage coming down onto Gul'dan. He's focused down and he becomes first blood. Robodova drops as well. He got killed off by the Psystorm there, and L5 takes control of the Shrine with 36 skeletons already captured. That's going to be the first Punisher going over to L5.
As great of an understanding as Nomia has shown in the drafting, as genius as it was, it seems they do not fully understand the power spike of their composition at this very moment. Illidan, Tyrael are amazing level 10 heroes and beyond. They have a lot of mobility, a lot of control, but they do not excel in a straight up fight. What we saw here is that Nomia says, we will stand as 5, we will fight your 5. But it is not ideal with Anubarak, with Gul'dan, to just stand your ground, defend it, and go all the way from 100 to 0. Whoever wins the fight, wins the fight. That is not what Nomia can do here. Illidan, he's an amazing split pusher. Gul'dan, his damage comes out over time. They took the fight, they challenged L5, and they came out very far behind. L5 takes that victory and they kill Gul'dan easily.
They also get the bottom fort thanks to that Punisher. They moved back though, didn't want to overextend or play over aggressively. Instead, they've already taken the bottom Khazra camp, taking this side Khazra camp as well, as Illidan has moved very far across the map from Nomia up the top here, finds Ragnaros, finds a meteor to the face actually, and is taking a lot of damage. Tyrael coming in, they want to try and maybe get Jelgar here, and with a noob, they're able to pick that off, making the kill count 2-1.
Good move, nice rotation by Nomia, but the problem is that Nomia is seeking value in the top lane. Yes, they get a kill on Ragnaros, but it is he's immediately relieved in his position by Swoy. Experience is gained, deep push is garnered, and at the same time, Nomia, the only person that they can send to defend the Impaler camp at the bottom is Uther. If you've ever wave cleared as Uther, even with Holy Fire, that's a miserable position.
It does take a very long time. Noob coming in, they want to try and maybe get some more value on the map by killing him off, but with Shield Wall already available, Noblesse too tough to kill at this stage.
The best teams at the mid-season Brawl, at Pro, Heroes, Global Championship, competitions, they know how to rotate and fight at the right time, where whether you win or lose the fight, or maybe it ends in a draw, you will get value on the map. We saw Nomia getting that kill, but it was at the worst possible time. They got a lot of push done against them in the bottom lane. So L5, they are very okay with that death from Ragnaros. Now they're starting to push as 5. They know that if they can take one wave and this tower, they'll be to level 10 and they'll secure the second objective.
Yeah, which will be coming up soon. That would be perfect timing for them, which is why they are playing so aggressively. It's spawning in the top lane as well, weakening this top lane. So the Punisher goes down here and will do even more damage. This is the perfect situation for L5. 10s are available. So Furious smashed Crystal Aegis, taunts the Archon, and Valor is holding, but both will be fine here.
Nomia quickly adjusts. They know that it is 100% forfeited, that objective. They will never get it. They will start rotating to mid and bottom, I want to say. There's no one in bottom lane yet, so Nomia's level 10 is still quite a while away. Would like to see someone in that bottom lane as well. But what Nomia did really well, they placed the Nubarak at the anchor position, at the bush. They know that their only recourse is to get value in another lane, and that good teams have started to under-prioritize the objective, knowing that the weaker team, the lower level team, is going to go somewhere else. And you search for that kill. L5 did this very well, but they were unable to get value because Nomia's scouting, the Nubarak, was too good.
Yeah, Nomia actually doing some really well here, trying to get themselves towards that level 10. Like you said, though, this objective easily going over to L5, and that's going to be pushing in the lane with no fort. The question is, are L5, except for Nitrogen, because he is Tassadar, willing to take the risk of extending that far to maybe pressure the keep with this Punisher?
Well, I don't think this is going to be one of those 8-minute victories that we've seen some of which so far. MVP Black, by this time, I believe, already won the game against Nomia. Maybe a minute or two off. Yeah. That was just incredible. But L5 not quite seeing that opportunity yet. Nonetheless, leading far. They're pushing in here with the Arcane Punisher. But look at that. Ragnaros is still in the middle. This is not an ending maneuver. This is just for damage and to increase the lead.
Yep, getting even further ahead. Heroics, though, are available for Nomia, which is why we're not seeing so much aggression onto this keep. It is Cocoon, Sanctification, Horrify, the Metamorphosis, and the Divine Shield. So this is very much a carry the Illidan comp.
I think this is the moment that Nomia decides to make a stand. They're going in with their level 10s. Bro Charge misses. Strafe
is interrupted. In comes the Aegis, keeping Valor alive, but she's horrified into the team of Nomia. They try to focus her down. And SCSC getting healed by Aria, but he is dropped first. So Furious doesn't really stun anyone. They're trying to get it, but they turn around, killing off the Gul'dan. Everyone from Nomia is low. It's a 1-for-1 trade, and Nomia pulls back.
Gul'dan way too far out of position. He has had very aggressive positioning throughout much of this game. He needs to be aware that he is the most killable target on his team. Divine Shield was still available, so definitely you need to be able to be in range of Uther to get that Divine Shield. A nice kill there on Vala, great Horrify, but then he should have been drawing back. Now though, it's 2 takedowns for Nomia, 3 for L5. And the Punisher isn't up yet. Nomia, they're going to try and find a way to get the level 13 talent by the time they have to contest the next Punisher.
Yeah, and that's not too far away, but they are a level and a half away from that level 13. They really need to find a way to get this XP as quick as possible. Bot lane is pushing up, though, so they're going to be able to soak that a little bit safer once those mercenaries push all the way up to the keep. Unfortunately, that means the mercenaries are pushed all the way up to the keep.
Now, this is not a bad defense plan for Nomia. They've got Fallen Bruiser pushing at the top. What Nomia needs to do to start a fight, to sell it, make it look real, and not continue it. Don't die, don't kill. But they are too passive, too scared here. They had Divine Shield, they had Web Wrap. I feel like it would have been a really good fake committal to get more Fallen Bruiser value. What we saw from Nomia is they started this tournament fantastically. 2-0 victory over SPT. They made us believers, but then when they are against the Korean team, they shut down. They start playing passively. They start playing scared. And I'm afraid that that's going to cost them a little bit here.
On the bright side, though, they are halfway through level 12. Unfortunately, that's not good enough, as L5 taking the advantage onto the Shrine. They're trying to get Ragnaros, though, who is dropping. The Sulfurous Match does hit the Anubarak, who has to pull back, and because of that, Ragnaros is able to escape, and Nomia move back for the defense here because they still can't contest the Punisher, because they still don't have that level 13, and they've burned Cocoon.
Jongha's Ragnaros has been caught fairly frequently in this tournament, often using Sulfurous Smash on himself just to save himself in a simple laning process. Of course, Cocoon was used for that, so it is fairly forgivable, but it has been a bit of a weak point here for L5. However, they are not finding that weakness exploited too much. They're doing a lot of 5-man grouping because they've been ahead due to that early fight where Nomia took too much on in that first objective. And now L5 has been riding that momentum. Let's see if Nomia can make it back. Big Punisher attack here on the bottom keep.
Robodoba able to tank through it, though. Illidan has arrived back. He took another Shaman Camp and then beat back to help his team. The Punisher down to half health. Keep dropping a little bit low. Already a third of its health is gone. The very safe, very far back play from Nomia is going to mean they sacrifice the keep, but it means that they won't be engaged upon and lose to the Punisher at least.
Very nice positioning by L5, putting Varian in front to draw out the stuns. Ragnaros, nice Crystal Aegis!
It is interrupted. Now we're seeing Jongha retreating back. He's trying to pop the Cocoon. Metamorphosis gets a little bit of value here. Vanilla getting focused down, deleted by the Hammer. Noob also taken out. Illidan chased down, killed by Sulfurous. The Punisher still alive, finally drops. Tyrael chased down. That's going to be 4 heroes dead, and they could attempt for core here.
Yeah, that's an amazing fight position for L5 to win. We see SDSC going ham on Gul'dan. John gets deleted, and you win a fight at the enemy core. You go straight for it. L5 goes for the juggler, and here we go. Nomia with the 5 deaths, and L5 will win the first map.
That is GG. Great engage. Even with the Punisher on such low health, they took the commitment and they were able to get the kills and end the game. Nicely done by L5. Able to take the first game in this best of 5 series.
And Nomia unable to leverage a fantastic God draft here against the Korean powerhouse L5, the multi-global championship victors. L5, they do what is expected. They use their superior mechanics, rotations, and team fight abilities to draw out the first map here against Nomia.
Yeah, and that was an 11-minute victory with 8 kills to 2. That was so quick that everything happened at once. It was so passive gameplay from both teams all the way up until that last moment. Very well played by L5 there, but Nomia did put up a good attempt with this.
Yeah, I think their draft, really good. I think they had the tools to deal with L5 later on as the game would have progressed. But the biggest thing is, I think that first fight at the Punisher, and also I would like to see them kind of turn it up. They should not be scared. L5 have not looked like their World Championship form, and so Nomia does have a chance, but they need to believe in themselves. Let's see if they can rally.
Yeah, and to talk about this more, we're going to send you guys back to our analyst desk, hosted by Kalaris.
That's right. Thank you very much, boys. 1-0 currently here to L5. And if L5 is able to make that game work after the draft, it's going to be difficult for Nomia, as L5 look pretty dominant there.
I feel like it just seals the fate for the series for me for Nomia. I just don't see a draft or a world outside of a colossal misplay, because even at the end there, Nomia took the only fight they could have taken to lose the game right there.
Yeah.
It's just, L5 is just straight out playing them.
Yeah, the early game was definitely what decided a big part of the match. Usually Illidan needs a little bit longer to completely come online, and L5 exploited that weakness and said, okay, we're going to win the first fight. They take the double kill, they take the Punisher, take a fort immediately with it thanks to the double kill, and that put them so far ahead in experience that it was extremely difficult for Nomia to come back into it, and they just never had that opportunity to really carry the momentum.
Jay, how you have some of the closing moments of that game for us, I believe.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one, I think, because it was so quick that it was just unexpected, because right now you just see L5, they're pushing in, they're taking the keep. I think we could have seen this a little bit further, because it all started when Zhang Ha started to use Molten Core. Hopefully we can move this forward just a little bit, but it's the priority targeting, right? So we saw Greymane banned against Nomia as we move forward. All right, let's just pause here. So right now, Dread talked about this is one of the only ways they can lose, and I agree. And the prime target is going to be Zhang Ha here in a minute as we roll it forward, because this is where Gul'dan Illidan kind of comes in. Pause right now. They put everything onto Ragnaros. You have a Gul'dan and Illidan. That does not scream burst damage. You have great CC. You have great dive potential, but do you have the damage? And they interrupt the Molten Cores. We move it forward now. And Swoi is just like, well, you just went all in, and let me just go ahead and Crystal Aegis here. Metamorphosis is fine. This gets cleared up really quick. And then they just turn around and you just roll it back real quick. The one target we talked about getting blown up. Look at his health bar. He's just fine. You don't have the burst potential. So we go forward again. He's the prime target, and he walks away from this virtually unscathed, throws down the hammer, grabs Vanilla. Robodoba fell as well. And guys, all the while, there was a certain Punisher in the middle of that was also wreaking havoc. And I think that was one of the things that it was a slight misplay, in that, as Dread said, this is the one fight where you could lose the game. I'm back there, I'm thinking they shouldn't lose here. Okay, they defended, and then they re-engaged. And the minute they re-engaged, if you can't take that fight, maybe you should have cleared the Punisher a little quicker. Right. But that was tough.
If they delayed the game on towards and Gul'dan had level 16, is there the potential there that he does have enough burst damage to make that different scenario a reality for them in a winning situation?
I don't know if you necessarily solidify your ability to be able to come back in that, but I can tell you that fighting 13 into 16 talent tier disadvantage is significantly worse than 16-19 or 16-20. Yeah. Just the 13-16 power gap is way too high to be like, this is the one fight. You should always stall for the 16 into whatever your opponent has if you can. And they very much had the opportunity for Nomia.
I mean, at this point, I really think the idea, it backfired, but I think the idea was really to fight before the 16 hits.
Yeah.
Because it's just on the edge of them hitting 16 and getting the talent. So they were trying to engage into it. I guess they felt pressured and said, hey, if we don't fight now, when do we take the fight? We will be a talent behind. When it comes to the next Punisher, we need to do it now. Problem is, of course, position wasn't really great. The punish of the opponent is still there, so it backfired quite hard. They should have delayed it maybe a bit more, but then again, hindsight is always 20/20.
All right, we're about to find out in just a few moments